Some secrets are small enough to carry alone. Others grow heavier with each passing day, until they threaten to crush everything you hold dear. Emily had always believed that love meant choosing between your heart and your family. She never imagined she would face that choice in the cruelest way possible. What happens when the man you love becomes the one person you cannot have? What happens when silence seems kinder than truth, but truth is the only path to freedom? This is a story about the weight of secrets, the price of deception, in the unexpected places where forgiveness can be found.
Quick pause. Before we continue, tell us, where in the world are you watching from? If you're enjoying these stories, make sure to hit subscribe, because tomorrow's episode is absolutely mind-blowing. The morning shift at the Grand Heritage Hotel always started the same way. Emily arrived at 6:30, 30 minutes before the lobby officially opened to guests. She liked the quiet of those early moments when the marble floors gleamed untouched and the chandelier lights hummed softly overhead. The hotel smelled of lemon polish and fresh coffee brewing in the restaurant kitchen down the hall. She would straighten the brochures at the concierge desk, check the reservation system, and mentally prepare herself for whatever the day would bring. At 24, Emily had worked at the hotel for 3 years. It was not the career she had dreamed of in college, but it paid the bills and offered a certain predictability she found comforting. The guests were mostly business people and tourists, transient faces that required pleasant smiles and efficient service, but nothing more. She had mastered the art of professional distance, of being helpful without being personal. Everything changed 6 months ago, when Daniel walked through those brass-framed doors. He had been checking in for a week-long business conference. Emily remembered the way he approached the desk, briefcase in one hand, phone in the other, the slight distraction of someone with too many responsibilities pulling at his attention. He was older than the men she typically noticed, probably in his early 40s, with gray threading through his dark hair and lines around his eyes that suggested he smiled often. He wore his suit with the casual confidence of someone accustomed to boardrooms and business dinners. Their first interaction was purely professional. She checked him in, explained the amenities, handed him his keycard. He thanked her with a warmth that felt genuine rather than automatic. Most guests barely looked at receptionists, seeing them as part of the furniture. Daniel met her eyes and seemed to actually see her. He returned to the desk 3 times that first day with questions that Emily suspected he already knew the answers to. Where was the best place for coffee nearby? Did the hotel have a business center? What time did breakfast service end? Each time, the conversation stretched a little longer. By the 3rd visit, they were both smiling at the transparent pretense. On his 4th day, he asked if she would have coffee with him after her shift. Emily should have said no. Hotel policy discouraged staff from fraternalizing with guests. The age difference alone should have given her pause. But there was something about Daniel that made her want to say yes. Maybe it was the way he listened when she spoke, leaning in slightly as if her words mattered. Maybe it was the loneliness she had been carrying for so long, the sense that her life had become nothing but work and sleep and the occasional phone call with her mother. Maybe it was simply that he made her feel interesting, desired, seen. She said yes. That coffee turned into dinner. Dinner turned into a long walk through the city streets as evening settled into night. They talked about everything and nothing. Daniel told her about his consulting work, the endless travel, the hotel rooms that all blurred together. Emily told her about her apartment, her love of old movies, the novel she kept meaning to write but never seemed to find time for. He did not treat her like she was young and naive. He did not condescend or lecture. He simply listened and responded with a thoughtfulness that made her feel like an equal. When he kissed her goodnight outside her apartment building, Emily felt something shift inside her chest. It was not the giddy excitement of a crush. It was something deeper, something that felt like coming home. Daniel's conference ended, but he did not disappear. He lived 3 hours away,
far enough to make the relationship complicated, but close enough to make it possible. He started visiting every other weekend, always staying at the Grand Heritage, always finding reasons to linger at his desk between his meetings. They fell into a rhythm of stolen moments and careful discretion. He would text her during his lunch breaks. She would call him on her drive home from work. They would spend weekends at her apartment, ordering takeout and watching movies, talking until the early hours of the morning. Emily had never felt this way about anyone. Daniel was steady where past boyfriends had been flaky. He was attentive where others had been self-absorbed. He remembered details she mentioned in passing. He asked about her day and genuinely cared about the answer. When she told him about her strained relationship with her mother, he listened without judgment. When she admitted she felt stuck in her job, he encouraged her to pursue her writing without making her feel inadequate for not having done so already. But there was one thing they never discussed: family. Emily had mentioned her mother in passing, describing her as busy and distant, a workaholic who had raised Emily alone and never quite learned how to stop putting work first. Daniel would nod sympathetically, but never press for details. He never asked to meet Margaret. He never suggested introducing Emily to anyone in his own life. At first, Emily told herself this was normal. They were still new, still figuring things out. But as months passed, the absence of that conversation began to feel deliberate. When she asked about his family, Daniel would deflect smoothly, mentioning a brother he rarely saw, parents who had passed away years ago. He kept his personal life carefully compartmentalized, and Emily found herself doing the same. She did not tell her mother about Daniel. Margaret would disapprove of the age gap, would find reasons to criticize, would turn something beautiful into something shameful. It was easier to keep Daniel separate, to preserve this one piece of her life that belonged only to her. 6 months in, Emily knew she was in love. She also knew that their relationship existed in a bubble that could not last forever. Eventually, they would have to integrate their lives, introduce each other to the people that mattered. Eventually, the secrecy would have to end. She just didn't know how catastrophically it would unravel. It was a Tuesday in late October when everything began to fall apart. Emily was restocking the guest information packets at the front desk when her phone buzzed with a text from her mother. Margaret rarely texted during work hours. Their communication typically consisted of brief Sunday phone calls where they exchanged surface-level updates and maintained the polite distance that had characterized the relationship for years. The message was short. "Call me when you have a moment. I have wonderful news." Emily felt a flutter of curiosity. Her mother was not prone to excitement or spontaneity. Wonderful news from Margaret usually meant a promotion at work or a successful business quarter. Still, there was something different in the tone of the message, an uncharacteristic warmth that made Emily reach for her phone. She waited until her lunch break, then stepped outside into the crisp autumn air to make the call. Margaret answered on the second ring, and her voice was brighter than Emily had heard her in years. They exchanged pleasantries, the usual dance of how you doin's and fine thank yous. Then Margaret took a breath, and Emily could hear the smile in her voice. "I wanted you to be the first to know," Margaret said. "I've met someone."
Emily felt surprise ripple through her. Her mother had not dated anyone since Emily's father left when Emily was 5. For nearly 20 years, Margaret had devoted herself entirely to work and raising Emily. Romance had never seemed to be something she wanted or needed. "That's great, Mom," Emily said, meaning it. "Tell me about him." Margaret laughed, actually laughed, and the sound was so unfamiliar that Emily felt a pang of something like grief for all the years her mother had not laughed like that. "His name is Daniel. We met at a business conference about 3 months ago. He's kind and successful, and he treats me like I'm the most important person in the world. I know it's fast, but Emily, I think this might be real." Emily's heart stuttered. Daniel? Common name, surely not the same Daniel. "That's wonderful." Emily managed, her voice suddenly tight. "What does he do?" "He's a business consultant. travels a lot for work, but he's been making time to visit almost every other weekend. I never thought I'd feel this way again." The world tilted. 3 months ago. Business conference. Every other weekend? "Mom, what's his last name?" "Reynolds. Daniel Reynolds." "Why do you ask?" Emily closed her eyes. Daniel Reynolds. Her Daniel. "Just curious," she whispered. "I'm so happy for you." They talked for a few more minutes, but Emily heard almost nothing. Her mind was reeling, trying to make sense of the impossible. When Margaret said she wanted Emily to meet him soon, maybe at Sunday dinner next week, Emily made vague agreeing sounds and ended the call as quickly as she could without seeming rude. She stood outside the hotel, phone clutched in her shaking hand, and felt her entire world crack open. The man she loved was dating her mother, and neither of them knew she knew.
Emily moved through the rest of her shift in a fog. She smiled at guests, checked people in and out, answered questions with practiced efficiency, while her mind screamed. Every time the elevator doors opened, she half expected to see Daniel walk out. Every time her phone buzzed, she flinched. He had not texted her all day, which was unusual. Normally, he sent good morning messages, midday check-ins, little jokes or observations throughout the day. Today, nothing. The silence felt ominous, loaded with new meaning. She replayed every conversation they had ever had, searching for clues she had missed. He had been vague about his work travel, never specific about where he was going or who he was meeting. He had deflected every question about his personal life. He had never wanted to meet her mother, because he was already dating her mother. The realization made Emily physically ill. She excused herself twice during her shift to hide in the staff bathroom, pressing her forehead against the cool tile wall and trying to breathe through the waves of nausea. How long had he known? Margaret said they met 3 months ago. Emily and Daniel had been together for 6 months. That meant he had started seeing her mother while they were already in a relationship. Had he been playing them both from the start? Or had he genuinely not known Margaret was Emily's mother? Emily tried to remember what she had told Daniel about her mother. First name, certainly. Probably her profession as a pharmaceutical sales director. But last name? Emily had her father's last name, not Margaret's maiden name. It was possible, barely possible, that Daniel had not made the connection. But 3 months. He had been baiting them both for 3 months. Emily's shift ended at 3. She drove home on autopilot, her hands gripping the steering wheel so tightly her knuckles turned white. Her apartment had always been her sanctuary, the one place that felt entirely hers. Now it felt tainted. Daniel had been here countless times, sleeping in her bed, eating at her table, making her laugh in this living room. How many times had he left her apartment and driven to her mother's house? She wanted to scream. She wanted to throw things. Instead, she sat on her couch in the gathering darkness and stared at her phone. She had to tell her mother. That was the right thing to do. Margaret deserved to know that her boyfriend was a liar and a cheat, but the thought of making that call made Emily's chest tighten with panic. Her mother had sounded so happy, so alive. For the first time in Emily's memory, Margaret had something in her life besides work, and Emily would be the one to destroy it. There was another problem. If Emily told her mother the truth, she would have to admit that she had been in a secret relationship with a man 18 years older than her. Margaret would be furious, would see it as a betrayal. Their already fragile relationship might shatter completely. Emily's phone buzzed. Daniel. "Sorry I've been quiet today. Crazy meetings. Can I call you tonight?" She stared at the message, rage and heartbreak warring inside her chest. Part of her wanted to text back a scorching accusation, to unleash all her anger in capital letters and exclamation points. Part of her wanted to delete his number and never speak to him again. Instead, she typed, "We need to talk, in person." His response came quickly. "Is everything okay?" "No. Tomorrow morning.
The hotel lobby, 6 a.m. There was a long pause before he replied, "I'll be there." Emily did not sleep that night. She lay in bed watching the ceiling, running through 1,000 possible conversations, each one ending in disaster. By the time her alarm went off at 5:30, she felt hollowed out, operating on pure adrenaline and dread. She arrived at the hotel early, before the overnight security guard had even left. The lobby was empty, silent except for the hum of the heating system. Emily made coffee in the staff room with shaking hands, then positioned herself behind the reception desk, needing the barrier between her and what was coming. Daniel arrived at 5:55. He came through the front entrance, and Emily's heart clenched at the sight of him. He was wearing jeans and a jacket, casual clothes she had seen him in 100 times. He looked tired, concerned, and when he saw her, his expression softened into worry. "Emily, what's wrong?" She could not speak at first. He crossed the lobby toward her, and she held up a hand to stop him. "Stay there." He froze, confusion flickering across his face. "What's going on?" "My mother called me yesterday. She told me she's been seeing someone. Someone named Daniel Reynolds. Someone she met at a business conference 3 months ago. Someone who visits her every other weekend." She watched the color drain from his face, watched understanding and horror bloom in his eyes, watched him take a step back as if she had physically struck him. "Emily, how long have you known?" Her voice cracked. "How long have you known that Margaret is my mother?" Daniel's mouth opened and closed. He looked around the empty lobby as if searching for an escape route, then forced himself to meet her eyes. 2 months, he whispered. 2 months? 2 months of lies, of pretending, of kissing Emily while planning a future with her mother? "Why didn't you tell me?" Emily's hands gripped the edge of the desk. "I didn't know how." He ran a hand through his hair, his face twisted with anguish. "Emily, you have to understand. When I met your mother, I didn't know who she was. She goes by her maiden name professionally. Different last name, different city. I had no reason to connect her to you. We talked about our lives, but she never mentioned having a daughter named Emily, and I never thought to ask details." "But you figured it out 2 months ago." "She showed me a photo, an old picture of you as a teenager. I recognized you immediately, and I realized what I had done." "What you had done?" Emily's voice rose. "You were dating both of us, Daniel, at the same time, for months." "I know." His voice broke. "I know, and I've been sick about it. But by the time I realized I was in too deep with both of you. Your mother was talking about introducing me to her. You were talking about how distant your mother was. I kept thinking I could figure out a way to fix it, but every day I waited made it worse." "So you chose to keep lying." "I chose not to hurt anyone until I figured out what to do." He took a tentative step toward her. "Emily, I love you. I have loved you from the beginning. What your mother and I have, it's different. It started as something casual, but she got attached quickly. By the time I realized who she was, breaking up with her would have crushed her." Don't you dare make this about protecting her. You were protecting yourself. You didn't want to face the consequences of what you had done." "Maybe that's true, but Emily, I also didn't want to destroy your happiness. Or yours. You already destroyed both. My mother thinks she's found love. I thought I had found love. And it's all built on lies."
Daniel looked destroyed, but Emily could not find it in herself to care. She thought about her mother's voice on the phone, bright with happiness. She thought about all the nights she had spent in Daniel's arms, believing she had found something real. "What are you going to do?" Daniel asked quietly. Emily had been asking herself the same question all night. "I don't know. If you tell her, it will destroy her. If I don't tell her, she'll fall deeper in love with a liar." "Emily, please." He moved closer, and Emily backed away instinctively. "I know I don't deserve to ask you for anything, but please give me some time. Let me figure out how to end things with your mother in a way that doesn't completely devastate her. Let me take responsibility for this." "How are you going to do that? How are you going to break up with her without her asking why?" I'll figure it out. I'll make something up. I'll tell her I'm not ready for commitment, that work is too demanding. Whatever I need to say. Just please don't tell her about us. Don't make this worse than it has to be. Emily wanted to refuse. She wanted to call her mother right now, to burn Daniel's world down the way he had burned hers. But she thought about Margaret's laughter on the phone, and she hesitated. 1 week, she said finally. You have 1 week to end things with my mother. If you don't, I'm telling her everything. The affair, all of it. She deserves to know the truth. 1 week. Thank you, Emily. I promise I'll make this right. Get out, Daniel. Get out and don't contact me until you have ended it with her. He stood there for a long moment, looking like he wanted to say something more. Then he turned and walked back across the lobby, his footsteps echoing on the marble floor. Emily watched him go, watched him push through the brass-framed doors and disappear into the early morning light. Only then did she let herself collapse into the chair behind the desk, her whole body shaking. She had given him a week. 7 days to do the right thing. 7 days before she had to make an impossible choice. She did not know that the choice would be taken out of her hands much sooner than that, because Margaret was about to call with an invitation that would force everything into the open.
Telling and preparing this story took us a lot of time. So if you're enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story.
3 days passed in agonizing limbo. Emily went through the motions at work, answering phones and checking in guests while her mind churned with anxiety. Daniel had not contacted her, which she took as a hopeful sign. Maybe he was actually ending things with Margaret. Maybe this nightmare would be over soon. Then her mother called. Emily was on her lunch break, eating a sandwich she could barely taste when her phone rang. She considered ignoring it, but guilt won out. She answered. "Emily, sweetheart, I'm so glad I caught you." Margaret's voice was warm, excited. "I know this is short notice, but are you free for dinner on Saturday? I really want you to meet Daniel. I think you'll love him." Emily's stomach dropped. Saturday was 3 days away. Daniel had 4 days left in his week to end things. If Margaret was planning a dinner, he clearly had not broken up with her yet. "Mom, I don't know if Saturday works. Please, Emily, this is really important to me. He's important to me." Margaret's voice softened. "I know I haven't always been the mother you needed. I know I worked too much, wasn't present enough, but I'm trying to change that. I want you to be part of this new chapter of my life. I want the two most important people in my life to know each other." The words were like knives. Emily closed her eyes, fighting back tears. "Where were you thinking?" she managed. "My place? All took. Just the three of us, nice and intimate. Say 6 o'clock?" Emily knew she should refuse. Knew she should force Daniel's hand, make him choose between ending it with Margaret or facing them both. But she also knew her mother. Margaret did not ask for things. She did not express vulnerability or admit to past failures. The fact that she was doing both now meant this mattered to her deeply. "Okay," Emily heard herself say. 6 o'clock, Saturday. "Wonderful, thank you, honey. This means the world to me." After they hung up, Emily immediately called Daniel. He answered on the second ring. "Emily, I was just about to call you. My mother invited me to dinner on Saturday to meet you. You have 3 days to end this, Daniel. 3 days. I know. I've been trying to find the right time. There is no right time. You just have to do it. It's not that simple. Every time I try to bring it up, she starts talking about the future, about how happy she is. Emily, I've never seen someone change so much from being in a relationship. She's lighter, more open. Breaking her heart feels impossible. But you're going to do it." There was a pause. "Yes, I'll do it before Saturday, I promise." "You promised me a week. You have 3 days left. Don't make me regret trusting you." Emily hung up before he could respond. She sat in her car in the parking lot, her untouched sandwich beside her, and tried to imagine how Saturday would go. Best case scenario, Daniel would break up with Margaret in the next 3 days, Margaret would cancel the dinner, and Emily would have to comfort her heartbroken mother while hiding her own connection to the situation. Worst case scenario, Daniel would chicken out, the dinner would happen, and Emily would have to sit across from her mother and her ex-boyfriend, pretending they were strangers. Both options were unbearable. Saturday arrived with no word from Margaret canceling. Emily drove to her mother's house in a state of numb dread, her hands clenched on the steering wheel. She had practiced expressions in the mirror that morning. Surprise at meeting Daniel for the first time, polite interest in her mother's boyfriend, warmth that did not reach her eyes. She pulled into the driveway at 5:55. Daniel's car was already parked on the street. The sight of it made Emily want to turn around and drive away. But she had made a promise to her mother and she would keep it, even if it killed her. The front door opened before Emily could knock. Margaret stood there smiling, wearing a blue dress Emily had never seen before. She looked younger somehow, softer, happy in a way Emily had never witnessed. "Emily, you're right on time. Come in, come in." Margaret pulled her into a quick hug. "Daniel's already here. I've told him so much about you. I'm so excited for you two to meet." Emily followed her mother into the house, her heart pounding so hard she was sure Margaret could hear it. They walked through the familiar hallway, turned into the living room, and there he was. Daniel stood by the window holding a glass of wine. He looked up when they entered, and their eyes met for one terrible moment. Emily saw her own panic reflected back at her. He had not ended it. He had let this happen. "Daniel, this is my daughter, Emily. Emily, this is Daniel Reynolds." He crossed the room with his hand extended, playing the part perfectly. "It's wonderful to finally meet you. Your mother has told me so many wonderful things." Emily shook his hand, felt it tremble slightly against hers. "Nice to meet you too." "I'll just finish up in the kitchen," Margaret said brightly. "You two get acquainted. Dinner will be ready in a few minutes." She disappeared, leaving them alone. The silence was suffocating. "You didn't end it," Emily whispered harshly. "I tried. I swear, I tried 3 times this week. Every time I started to, she would start talking about the future, about how happy she is. Emily, I've never seen someone change so much from being in a relationship. She's lighter, more open. Breaking her heart feels impossible. But you're going to do it." There was a pause. "Yes, I'll do it before Saturday, I promise." "You promised me a week. You have 3 days left. Don't make me regret trusting you." Emily hung up before he could respond. She sat in her car on the parking lot, her untouched sandwich beside her, and tried to imagine how Saturday would go. Best case scenario, Daniel would break up with Margaret in the next 3 days, Margaret would cancel the dinner, and Emily would have to comfort her heartbroken mother while hiding her own connection to the situation. Worst case scenario, Daniel would chicken out, the dinner would happen, and Emily would have to sit across from her mother and her ex-boyfriend, pretending they were strangers. Both options were unbearable. The Daniel table was set beautifully, with Margaret's good china, 3 places arranged with military precision. She had prepared salmon, roasted vegetables, a fresh salad, everything plated with care. They sat down, Emily directly across from Daniel, Margaret at the head of the table between them. The meal began and Emily felt like she was watching herself from outside her body. This could not be real. This could not actually be happening. Margaret talked animatedly, asking Emily about work, sharing stories about dates she had gone on with Daniel. She glowed with happiness, more animated than Emily had seen her in years. Daniel contributed to the conversation with practiced ease, but she could see the strain around his eyes and tightness in his jaw. Emily barely spoke. She pushed food around her plate, offered one-word answers when directly addressed, and tried not to look at Daniel. "Emily, you seem distracted," Margaret said about halfway through the meal. "Is everything all right?" "Just tired. Work has been busy."
You work too hard. One of the things I appreciate about Daniel is how he's helped me understand work-life balance. I've spent 20 years at that company, barely taking time for myself, but Daniel has shown me there's more to life than quarterly reports. She reached over and squeezed Daniel's hand. The gesture was intimate, affectionate. Emily had to look away. "Margaret has told me you work at the Grand Heritage," Daniel said, clearly trying to include Emily in the conversation. "That's a beautiful property." "It's fine," Emily said shortly. "Emily wanted to be a writer," Margaret added. "She has such talent. I keep telling her she should pursue it more seriously." I didn't know that, Daniel lied smoothly. What kind of writing interests you? They had discussed her writing dreams dozens of times. He had read her work, encouraged her, told her she had real talent, and now he sat across from her pretending they had never met. I don't write much anymore, Emily said flatly. It was just a college hobby. That's not true, Margaret protested. Remember that story you wrote about the lighthouse keeper? It was beautiful. You read it to me over the phone, and I was so proud. Emily had read that story to Daniel too, curled up beside him in her apartment one night. He had listened with complete attention, had told her it deserved to be published. The memory felt like a betrayal now. The dinner continued, each minute stretching into eternity. By the time dessert arrived, chocolate cake Margaret had baked herself, Emily was vibrating with tension. She could not do this anymore, could not sit here and watch her mother fall deeper in love with a man who had betrayed them both. "Mom," Emily said abruptly, "can I talk to you alone?" Margaret looked surprised. "Of course. Is something wrong?" "I just need to speak with you privately." Daniel's eyes widened in alarm. He shook his head almost imperceptibly, but Emily ignored him. She stood, and Margaret followed her into the kitchen. Once the door swung closed, Margaret turned to her with concern. "Emily, what's going on? You've been acting strange all evening." This was it, the moment of truth. Emily could tell her mother everything right now, could expose Daniel's lies and infidelity, could destroy the happiness on Margaret's face and replace it with betrayal and pain. But looking at her mother, seeing the worry and care in her eyes, Emily found she could not do it. Not like this. Not in the middle of a dinner party with Daniel sitting in the next room. "I'm seeing someone," Emily said abruptly. "Someone I've been keeping secret from you." Margaret's expression shifted from concern to surprise. "Oh, okay. Why didn't you tell me?" "Because he's older, significantly older, and I thought you'd disapprove." "Emily, you're an adult. If he makes you happy and treats you well, that's what matters to me." Margaret reached out and touched Emily's arm. "How old is he?" "Early 40s. Margaret absorbed this. "That is a significant age gap, but I'm not going to judge you for it. Lord knows I'm dating someone 18 years younger than me in life experience." She smiled. "Is he good to you?" The question broke something inside Emily. Was Daniel good to her? He had been, until she discovered he was lying to her every single day, until she realized he was dating her mother behind her back. "I thought he was," Emily whispered, "but I found out he's been lying to me about important things." Margaret's expression hardened. "Then you need to end it. You deserve honesty, Emily. You deserve someone who respects you enough to tell you the truth even when it's difficult. Like Daniel respects you." The words came out sharper than Emily intended. Margaret looked taken aback. "Yes, like Daniel. He's been nothing but honest and open with me from the start. That's one of the things I love about him." Emily almost laughed at the irony, almost told her mother right then that Daniel had been lying since the day they met, but she swallowed the words. "I'm sorry, Mom. I didn't mean that how it sounded. I need to use the bathroom. I'll be right back." She escaped before Margaret could respond, locking herself in the small powder room off the hallway. She gripped the sink and stared at her reflection. Her face was pale, her eyes too bright. She looked like she was about to shatter. Her phone buzzed in her pocket. She pulled it out, expecting a message from Daniel. Instead, it was a text from an unknown number. "This is Dr. Sarah Chen from Riverside Women's Health. Your test results are ready. Please call our office on Monday to discuss next steps." Emily stared at the message in confusion. She had not been to that clinic, had not had any tests done recently. There must be some mistake. Then a second message came through. "Congratulations on your pregnancy." The phone slipped from her hand and clattered into the sink. She grabbed it with shaking fingers, read the message again and again. Pregnancy. No, this was impossible. This could not be happening. But Emily's hands went to her stomach, and suddenly the pieces fell into place. The nausea she had been attributing to stress, the exhaustion, the way certain smells had been bothering her lately. She hadn't gotten her period last month, but she had assumed it was from the emotional turmoil of discovering Daniel's betrayal. She was pregnant. Pregnant with Daniel's baby. The situation had just gone from impossible to catastrophic. And outside the bathroom door, Margaret and Daniel were waiting, completely unaware that Emily's secret had just become infinitely harder to keep.
Emily did not know how long she stood in that bathroom, staring at her phone. It could have been seconds or minutes or hours. Time had lost all meaning. The only reality was the text message on her screen and the growing certainty that her entire life had just imploded. Pregnant. She was pregnant with Daniel's baby while her mother planned a future with him. A soft knock on the door made Emily jump. "Emily? Honey, are you okay in there?" Margaret's voice, concerned and caring. Emily wanted to laugh, or scream, or both. "I'm fine, Mom. Just a second." She splashed cold water on her face, tried to steady her breathing. She could not fall apart. Not here, not now. She had to get through the rest of this dinner, then figure out what to do next. When she emerged, Margaret was waiting in the hallway. "You look pale. Are you feeling all right?" "Just a headache. Actually, Mom, I think I should probably go home." "Already? But we haven't even had coffee yet." "I'm sorry. I really need to leave." Margaret studied her face, and Emily saw the moment her mother's concern deepened into something more serious. "This is about that man you mentioned, isn't it? The one who's been lying to you." "Yes," Emily said, because it was not entirely a lie. "Then you're absolutely right to leave. Don't waste another moment on someone who doesn't deserve you." Margaret pulled Emily into a hug, and Emily had to bite her lip to keep from sobbing. "I love you, sweetheart. Whatever you're going through, we'll figure it out together." If only her mother knew how complicated figuring it out together was going to be. They returned to the dining room where Daniel had been clearing plates. He looked up when they entered, his expression guarded. "Emily's not feeling well. She's going to head home." "Oh, I'm sorry to hear that." Daniel's eyes met Emily's, and she saw the question in them. She gave a tiny shake of her head. "Not now. Not like this." "Thank you for dinner, Mom. It was lovely." "Of course, honey. Feel better." And Emily, Margaret's voice stopped her at the door. "Whatever is going on with that man, remember that you deserve better. You deserve honesty and respect and love. Don't settle for less." The words were meant to be comforting. Instead, they felt like shards of glass. Emily made it to her car before the tears came. She sat in the driveway, gripping the steering wheel, and let herself cry. When her phone buzzed with a text from Daniel, she ignored it. When it buzzed again and again, she turned it off completely. She drove home in the dark, her mind spinning through impossible scenarios. She could not have this baby, could not tie herself to Daniel forever while her mother married him. But the alternative, ending the pregnancy, made her feel sick in a way that had nothing to do with morning sickness. By the time Emily reached her apartment, she'd made a decision. She would tell Daniel about the pregnancy. Not because she wanted his input, but because he deserved to know before she made her choice. Then she would figure out what to do about her mother. Sunday morning came too soon. Emily woke to 17 missed calls from Daniel and a dozen text messages ranging from concerned to panicked. She read through them while drinking weak tea, the only thing her stomach would tolerate. "Emily, please call me. I need to know you're okay." "What happened at dinner? Did you tell her?" "I know you're angry with me. I deserve that, but please, just let me know you're all right. I'm worried about you." She texted back, "Meet me at my apartment, 1 hour." He arrived in 45 minutes, looking like he hadn't slept. Emily let him in without a word and gestured to the couch. They sat on opposite ends, the distance between them feeling like miles. "What happened last night?" Daniel asked. "You looked like you'd seen a ghost when you came out of the bathroom." "I got some news." "What kind of news?" I took a breath. There was no easy way to say this. "I'm pregnant." The color drained from Daniel's face. He opened his mouth, closed it, tried again. "You're pregnant?" Yes. With my baby? Obviously with your baby, Daniel. Who else would it be? He stood abruptly, paced to the window, ran both hands through his hair. Oh, God, Emily. Yeah. How far along? I don't know exactly. 6 weeks, maybe 7? I haven't been to a doctor yet. I just got the text last night at dinner. What are you going to do? The question hung in the air between them. Emily had been asking herself the same thing all night. I don't know. Part of me thinks I should end it, that bringing a child into this mess would be cruel. But part of me, she pressed a hand to her stomach, part of me already loves this baby. Daniel returned to the couch, sat down heavily. I'll support whatever you decide. Financially, emotionally, however you need. How? Emily cried. How are you going to support me when you're planning a life with my mother? How is that supposed to work, Daniel? I'll end it with her, today. I'll go to her house right now and tell her it's over. And what will you tell her? Why will you suddenly be ending a relationship she thinks is perfect? I'll figure something out. I'll say work is too demanding, that I'm not ready for commitment, whatever I need to say. She'll ask questions. She'll want to know what changed. Then I'll lie. I've gotten good at that. Bitterness in his voice was unmistakable. No more lies, Emily said, firmly. I'm done with lies. If you're going to end it with her, you tell her the truth. The truth will destroy her. The truth will hurt her, but it's better than building her entire future on a lie. She deserves to know who you really are before she marries you. Daniel was quiet for a long moment. You want me to tell her about us, about the baby. I want you to take responsibility for what you've done. Yes, it will hurt her. Yes, it will probably destroy any relationship I have with her, but it's the right thing to do. What if there's another way? There isn't. What if I just disappeared? Broke up with Margaret, told her I had to move away for work or something. You and I could go our separate ways. She would never have to know about us. Emily stared at him. You want to abandon your child? No, that's not what I meant.
That's exactly what you meant. You want to run away from the consequences of your actions. Again. She stood, her voice hard. You have 24 hours, Daniel. Either you tell my mother the truth or I will. And trust me, it will be much worse coming from me. Emily, please. Get out. Let me explain. Get out of my apartment. Get out and don't come back until you've done the right thing. He left, and Emily locked the door behind him. Then she slid down to the floor and cried until she had no tears left. The next 24 hours were the longest of Emily's life. She called in sick to work, unable to face the world. She lay on her couch, one hand on her stomach, trying to imagine what the future might look like. Every scenario ended in pain. Monday evening came and went with no word from Daniel. Emily's phone stayed silent. At 9 o'clock, she decided he had made his choice. He was not going to tell Margaret, which meant Emily would have to. She picked up her phone, pulled up her mother's number. Her finger hovered over the call button. This would change everything, would destroy her mother's happiness, expose Emily's own poor judgment, shatter whatever fragile relationship they had built over the years. But it had to be done. Before she could press dial, her doorbell rang. Emily's heart jumped. She walked to the door, looked through the peephole, and froze. It was not Daniel standing outside. It was her mother. And from the look on Margaret's face, she already knew everything.
Emily opened the door with shaking hands. Margaret stood in the hallway, still dressed in her work clothes, her face unreadable. They stared at each other for a long moment. "Can I come in?" Margaret asked quietly. Emily stepped aside. Margaret walked into the apartment, looked around as if seeing it for the first time, then turned to face her daughter. "When were you going to tell me?" Margaret's voice was steady, controlled, too controlled. Emily's throat tightened. "Tell you what? Don't lie to me on top of everything else.
Margaret pulled out her phone, swiped through it, then held it up. The screen showed text messages, messages between Daniel and Emily, intimate and damning. I found these on Daniel's phone last night after you left. I couldn't sleep, so I looked through his messages while he was in the shower. And I found months of conversations between you two. Emily felt the floor drop out from under her. Mom, how long? Margaret's voice cracked slightly. How long have you been sleeping with my fiancé? He's not your fiancé. You're not engaged. Answer the question. Emily sank onto the couch, her legs unable to support her. 6 months. We've been together for 6 months. Margaret's face went pale. 6 months. So you were with him before I even met him? Yes. And when did you find out he was seeing me too? 2 weeks ago when you called to tell me about him. 2 weeks? You've known for 2 weeks that I was dating your boyfriend and you said nothing? I didn't know how to tell you. I didn't want to hurt you. So you let me continue planning a future with a man who is cheating on me with my own daughter? Margaret was shaking now, her careful control slipping. You let me sit at that dinner table, serve you both food, watch you pretend to meet for the first time, all while you were carrying his baby? Emily's head snapped up. How did you know about that? Because Daniel told me. He came to my house an hour ago and confessed everything. The affair, the pregnancy, all of it. At least he had the decency to tell me before I heard it from someone else. I was going to tell you, Emily said desperately. Tonight. I was about to call you when you showed up. 2 weeks too late. I know I should have told you immediately, but Mom, you sounded so happy on the phone. For the first time in my life, I heard you laugh. I saw you smile. And I couldn't bear to be the one who destroyed that. So you chose to let me live in a lie? I chose to give Daniel time to make things right. By continuing to see him? By getting pregnant? Margaret's voice broke. Emily, he was my boyfriend. We were talking about marriage, and you were sleeping with him the entire time? He was my boyfriend first. I didn't know about you. But you found out, and you still said nothing. The words hung between them, heavy with accusation. Emily had no defense. Her mother was right. She had known the truth for 2 weeks and had done nothing. I'm sorry, Emily whispered. I'm so sorry, Mom. Margaret turned away, pressing her palms against her face. When she finally spoke, her voice was thick with tears. Do you have any idea what this feels like? The 2 people I trusted most in the world, both betraying me, both lying to my face. I never meant to betray you. But you did. Margaret turned back, and Emily saw tears streaming down her face. You did, Emily. You chose him over me. You chose to protect his lies instead of being honest with your own mother. I was trying to protect you. By lying to me? By not wanting to hurt you? Margaret's expression was harder than Emily had ever seen it. Well, you failed, because this hurts more than the truth ever could have. The words landed like physical blows. Emily felt tears streaming down her face. I'm sorry, she said again, knowing it was inadequate. I'm so sorry, Mom. Margaret stared at her for a long moment. Then she picked up her purse from where she had set it on the table. I need time, she said quietly. Time to process this. Time to figure out how I feel about everything. Mom, please. I can't do this right now, Emily. I can't stand here and comfort you when I'm the one who's been hurt. I need space. How much space?
I don't know. Days, weeks, maybe longer. Margaret walked to the door, then paused. For what it's worth, I hope you keep the baby. Whatever else has happened, that child deserves a chance at life. But I can't promise I'll be part of it. I can't promise I can forgive this. Mom,
But Margaret was already gone, the door closing with a soft click that sounded like finality. Emily stood alone in her apartment, one hand on her stomach, and felt the full weight of her choices crash down on her. She had thought she was protecting her mother. Instead, she had hurt her in the worst possible way. She had lost Daniel, which was no real loss at all, but she might have lost her mother, too. And that was a wound that felt too deep to heal. Over the next week, Emily called her mother 3 times. Each call went to voicemail. She sent text messages that went unanswered. The silence was deafening. Work became Emily's escape. She threw herself into her job at the hotel, taking extra shifts, volunteering for the difficult guests, staying late. Anything to avoid sitting alone in her apartment thinking about everything she had lost. She made an appointment with an OB/GYN, sat in the waiting room surrounded by happy couples, and felt more alone than she ever had in her life. The doctor confirmed what the text had told her. She was 7 weeks pregnant. Healthy pregnancy so far. She would need to start taking prenatal vitamins, avoid certain foods, come back for regular checkups. Emily nodded through all the instructions, accepted the pamphlets and prescriptions, and walked out feeling numb. Daniel tried to contact her several times. She blocked her number. Whatever he wanted to say, she did not want to hear it. He had made his choices. Now they would all have to live with the consequences. 2 weeks after Margaret walked out of her apartment, Emily was working the evening shift at the hotel when an elderly woman approached the desk. She was well-dressed, carrying herself with the kind of confidence that came from money and education. Excuse me, dear. I'm looking for Daniel Reynolds. I believe he stays here frequently." Emily's heart stopped. I'm sorry, we can't give out information about our guests." Of course. It's just that I'm his mother, you see, Carol Reynolds. I've been trying to reach him, but he's not answering his phone. I thought perhaps I could leave a message for him here." His mother? Daniel had told Emily his parents were both dead. Another lie. "I'll make sure he gets a message if he checks in." "Thank you, dear. You're very kind." Pause, studying Emily's face. You look familiar. Have we met before?" "I don't think so." Perhaps you just have one of those faces." Carol wrote down her phone number on a piece of paper. "If you do see Daniel, could you tell him to call his mother? It's rather important." After she left, Emily stared at the phone number, another piece of Daniel's life that had been built on lies. She crumpled the paper and threw it in the trash. 3 weeks after the confrontation, Emily came home from work to find an envelope taped to her door. Inside was a handwritten letter on her mother's stationery. "Emily, I've spent the past 3 weeks trying to figure out how I feel about everything that happened. I've been angry, hurt, betrayed. I've questioned every decision I've made as a mother. I've wondered where I went wrong. But I've also had time to think about the conversation we had at dinner before everything fell apart. About how you felt I was never there for you. About work always came first. You were right. I was so focused on providing for us, on making sure we had financial stability, that I forgot to actually be present in your life. I let you grow up feeling like you weren't my priority. And maybe that's why you didn't feel like you could come to me when you found out about Daniel. I'm not saying that excuses what you did. The lies, the secrecy, the decision to let me continue with Daniel even after you knew the truth, those were your choices and they hurt me deeply. But I've also realized something. You were trying to protect me. You were misguided and you went about it the wrong way, but your intention was to preserve my happiness. That doesn't make it right, but it does make it understandable. I'm not ready to see you yet. I'm not ready to pretend everything is fine. But I want you to know that I'm trying to work through this. I'm in therapy. I'm dealing with my own issues about why I attract men who lie to me. Why I've kept my daughter at arm's length for so long. And Emily, I want you to know that despite everything, I still love you. You're my daughter. That doesn't change, even when you hurt me. When you're further along in your pregnancy, if you want me there, I will be. Not because I've forgiven everything, but because that baby is my grandchild. And maybe this is a chance for both of us to do better. For me to be the mother I should have been, and for you to build the kind of honest relationship we never had. Take care of yourself. Take your vitamins. Rest when you need to. Love, Mom. Emily read the letter 3 times, tears streaming down her face. It was not forgiveness, not exactly, but it was something. It was hope. She wrote back that same night, a long letter, apologizing again, explaining her thought process, acknowledging her mistakes. She talked about the pregnancy, about her fears, about how alone she felt. She did not ask for forgiveness because she knew she did not deserve it yet, but she asked for a chance to rebuild, a chance to be honest with each other, finally and completely. She mailed the letter the next morning. 2 days later, her mother called. They talked for an hour. It was awkward and painful, and sometimes one or both of them cried. But they talked, really talked, maybe for the first time in years. It was not a happy ending, not yet. Margaret was still hurt, still working through her feelings of betrayal. Emily was still dealing with the consequences of her choices. The relationship between them was fragile, tentative, built on the ruins of broken trust. But it was a beginning.
Emily stood at the hotel reception desk for the last time, training her replacement. In 2 weeks, she would start her new job as a content writer for a marketing firm. The position paid better, had better hours, and most importantly, did not carry the memories of Daniel walking through those brass-framed doors 6 months ago. Her pregnancy was obvious now, a round belly that made simple tasks like bending over to pick up dropped pens an adventure. She was tired constantly, her feet hurt, and she had heartburn that no amount of antacid could touch. But she was healthy. The baby was healthy, and somehow that was enough. The doors opened and Margaret walked in. She had started visiting Emily at work once a week, bringing lunch or just stopping by to check in. They still had not fully recovered from the damage, but they were trying. They had family therapy sessions every other week. They talked on the phone regularly. They were learning how to be mother and daughter in a way they had never managed before. "How are you feeling?" Margaret asked, settling into one of the lobby chairs. "Like I'm carrying a bowling ball. This baby has discovered my ribs make excellent drum practice." Margaret smiled. "That's a good sign. Active babies are healthy babies." They talked about nursery preparations, about Emily's upcoming move into a larger apartment, about childbirth classes. Normal conversations about normal things. It felt almost comfortable. "I got a letter from Daniel's lawyer," Emily mentioned. "Child support agreement is finalized." "How are you feeling about that?" "Relieved, mostly. I don't want anything from him except financial responsibility." "Have you thought about whether you'll let him meet the baby?" Emily had thought about little else. "Not right away. Maybe eventually. But I need more time. We both do." Margaret nodded, understanding. They had both needed time to heal from what Daniel had done to them. "Mom," Emily said quietly, "thank you." "For what?" "For not giving up on me. For coming back, even after I hurt you." Margaret's eyes glistened. "You're my daughter, Emily. I will always come back, even when you make terrible choices." She smiled to take the sting out of the words. "Though I'd appreciate it if you didn't make a habit of dating my boyfriends." Emily laughed, surprising herself. "I promise to thoroughly vet any future romantic interests for potential maternal conflicts." "See that you do." As they sat together in the hotel lobby, Emily realized something profound. The betrayal that had nearly destroyed them had instead become the catalyst for building something real. Daniel had wounded them both deeply, had exposed every crack in their relationship. But from those cracks, something new was growing, something honest, something worth nurturing. She had thought she had to choose between love and family. In the end, she had lost a false love and found a real family connection. 3 months later, Emily gave birth to a baby girl. The labor was long and difficult, but Margaret was there through all of it, holding Emily's hand, coaching her breathing, and crying tears of joy when her granddaughter entered the world. They named her Hope, because hope was what had brought them through the darkness. Hope was what had given them the courage to forgive and rebuild. Hope was the foundation of their new beginning. Emily moved into Margaret's house when Hope was 2 weeks old. It made sense financially and emotionally. Both women were ready to try living together. It was not always easy. They disagreed about parenting styles, about schedules, about the temperature of the house. But they talked through every conflict. They compromised. They were learning. Margaret reduced her work hours, something Emily never thought she would see. She was present for Hope's first smile, her first laugh, her first time sleeping through the night. She was the grandmother Emily needed her to be as a mother. And Emily found herself writing again. Late at night, with Hope sleeping in her bassinet nearby, she would open her laptop and work on the novel she had abandoned. It was slow going, but it was happening. Margaret encouraged her, believed in her, read her drafts with genuine interest. Daniel sent child support every month. He asked occasionally if he could visit, could meet his daughter. Emily was not ready yet. Maybe someday she would be able to let him be a father in some capacity, but for now, the wounds were still healing. One evening, 6 months after Hope was born, Emily and Margaret sat on the porch together. Hope slept peacefully in her carrier between them. The sunset painted the sky in shades of orange and pink. "I've been thinking," Margaret said quietly, "about everything that happened, and I realized something." "What's that?" "If Daniel hadn't done what he did, we never would have had this. You and I were drifting apart. We were becoming strangers who called each other on Sundays out of obligation. We were never going to fix our relationship because we were both too afraid to be honest about what was broken." "So you're saying something good came from all the pain?" "I'm saying that terrible things can lead to necessary changes. Daniel hurt us both terribly, but he also forced us to confront truths we had been avoiding for years." Margaret reached over and squeezed Emily's hand. "I'm grateful for what we have now, even if I hate how we got here." Emily squeezed back. "Me too, Mom. Me too." Hope stirred in her carrier, making the small sounds that meant she would wake soon. Emily and Margaret both leaned forward instinctively, ready to meet whatever needs arose. They were a team now, a family in the truest sense. The story of how Emily became a single mother was complicated and painful, but the story of how her and her mother became a family was simple. They chose each other. They chose honesty over comfortable lies. They chose to do the hard work of rebuilding trust. They chose forgiveness not because it was easy, but because it was necessary. And in the end, those choices made all the difference. The betrayal that should have destroyed them had instead become the foundation of something stronger. They had learned that love without honesty is just another form of betrayal. That family means choosing each other even when it is hard. That forgiveness is not forgetting, but deciding that the future matters more than the past. As the stars began to appear in the darkening sky, Emily looked at her mother holding her sleeping daughter and felt a peace she had never known before. They were not perfect. Their relationship still carried scars, but they were real with each other now in a way they had never been. And that reality, painful as it had been to achieve, was worth everything they had lost to find it.
Up next, 2 more incredible stories are waiting for you right on your screen. If you enjoyed this one, you won't want to miss these. Just click to watch and don't forget to subscribe.